It's actually an interesting question, isn't it? What is the gospel? It seems reasonable to assert that one of the primary purposes of the church and of believers is to preach the gospel. But what is it? It's a very interesting question, isn't it? What is the gospel? And I don't believe that I'm going to give a comprehensive answer because I don't think there's a full answer. I think the whole Word of God fleshes out the gospel. Does that make sense? But I'm hoping that we're going to look at it in a way that will light a fire in us, that will be useful for us to see Christ's kingdom furthered on earth in new ways. And I also believe that they are ways that the world is desperately in need of. The first thing that kind of seems obvious if we talk about the gospel is that it's good news. That's what the word means, good news. And we think, yeah, I know that, I've heard that before. We know it's good news. But do you ever think of using that as a measure of your message and of your communication? Well, what do you mean by that? If I tell people that they are horrible, miserable, wretched sinners when they don't believe that, that's not coming as good news to them. You actually have to put some thought into, does this message or what I'm communicating actually come forth as good news? And you say, but I don't like that because the world is broken and people need to know they're broken. Well, hold on, rewind. Let's start with the idea of Paul. The law came, and then I started to understand what it means to live in a world of love, of justice, of truth, of goodness and beauty. I started to agree with the law in my mind and said, that's the kind of person I want to be, and that's the kind of world I want to live in. That comes forth as good news. Does that make sense? Maybe give you another example. I believe in a world where all politicians always told the truth. And they were always faithful to what they were elected to do in government. And they would never take a bribe. Oh, yeah. So let me frame that again. God has decreed from heaven that the right way to live on planet Earth is for politicians to be moral and just and not take bribes and not be corrupt. That's good news. Do you see how the same ideas can come forth as bad news or good news? And most people, when you start to take them down this road of describing the world that God has created and the way it was designed to operate, they say, yeah, that makes sense. That's what I want. A world where people don't abuse one another and don't oppress one another and don't take advantage of one another. I say, yeah, that's the kind of world I want. See how that's good news? And that's what I'm trying to get at, is that we can take that whole idea of the gospel being good news and think about the way we communicate things. Is it actually good news, or is it contrary to being good news? And once I have come to this idea, it's easy to talk about the way God designed things out there. But then when we start to talk about our responsibility in that world, that's actually more challenging, isn't it? When you're trying to bring that forth as good news, not bad news to people. So when somebody is having a problem or an issue, or they're discovering something in their life is actually ruining what they love, explaining to them the reason actually comes off as good news in a way, doesn't it? But when people start to wrestle with, this is what a good person is, and this is what a good world looks like, they find themselves enemies of that world. And now the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ comes forth like light in the darkness. You see what I'm saying? So the first thing I think about the gospel is it's good news. But if we're really trying to study what is the gospel, would you say it's fair that maybe we should start with Jesus as our teacher and see how he preached? I thought this is actually interesting to me, and I actually just went through the Gospels and read the red.